Hello again! In this video, I'm going to show you all about how to use layer masks. So this will allow you to selectively and most importantly, non-destructively make edits to your photos. So remember that F-18 shot from the last video? By the end of this video, we're going to be able to show you how to go from this to this. And just like with the previous video, I learned all of this from the Center of Aviation Photography, so all credit must go to them. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into Photoshop.
All right, so to get into our layer mask mode, we're going to want to go up into our Adobe Camera Raw filter, and we're going to want to click on this icon right here that says masking. And then we're going to have some options here. Now, the first thing that I like to do with layer masking is I generally like to adjust the sky before I do anything else. So how we're going to do that is I'm going to click on linear gradient. And then I'm going to start up at the top here and then just drag this down. And then I can drag this up. And then to move my mask, I just have to click and hold on this little square, and then I can move it down. And let's kind of get that right there. And we want to make sure this is straight. And I'm going to move this up a little bit. And I'm going to move this down. Kind of like that. All right, so that's pretty good. Now, note that you can also change the color of your mask so that way you can see where it is by clicking right here. And we can make this, whatever color we want, just for visibility's sake. Now, the problem here is if I start making adjustments, anything that is, in this case, that red color will be affected. That's where my mask is going to be. So if I just start adjusting the exposure, you can see that it's adjusting the jet 2 and the sky. Well, we don't want that, so let's undo that. We only want to be adjusting the sky. So to do that, I'm going to go in here where it says subtract, and I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to want to click on brush. And then just like how I was setting my brush size when I was doing content aware or with Clone Stamp, I can make my brush bigger or smaller by right bracket, left bracket. And I also want to make sure that this auto mask checkbox right here is checked, because when it is, it will allow, Photoshop will automatically detect the edges of the jet, and it will make it so I don't have to zoom in real close or be really, really careful when I get to the edges. So let me show you what I mean. So let's just start erasing away the areas that we don't want our mask to affect. So we definitely don't want the fuselage here. We definitely don't want the nose, and make that smaller. Now let's just do this area here. And again, making sure that my auto mask is checked, I'm just going to click and drag. And as you can see, Photoshop is detecting the edge automatically, and I really don't have to worry about being really, really careful when I'm right at the edge there. So I'm just going to speed this up just to select our sky, and I'll be right back. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now you'll also note that I did leave a little bit of the mask here in the cockpit, because when you're on, especially when you're doing cockpits, you're actually going to want to uncheck the auto mask feature to get rid of those areas right there. Okay, now we can start changing our sky. And to turn on or off the visibility of the mask, we can either uncheck the show overlay button, just like that. And in this case, let's keep it off because we actually want to see what we're doing. So then I'm going to scroll down here under this section right here, and now I can make selective adjustments to my sky. So as you can see, the sky is kind of overexposed and too bright. So let's bring this down a little bit. And just like the adjustments that I was making before, it's the same idea that you're going to have to play around a little bit. Again, there's no preset or secret recipe to any of this. So let's bring our contrast up maybe a little bit. Let's kind of bring our whites down maybe. Let's see what happens if we bring our blacks up. Oh, actually, let's bring our blacks down. That was looking pretty good, kind of giving us a little bit more shadow in the sky there. So once we've got that how we want, then we can go down in here into the color section. Now this is really, really cool because Photoshop, at least in this section, I can adjust the color temperature of the sky. So in this case, I want to make my sky a little bit more blue. So I'm going to bring the color temperature down. And again, remember, a little goes a long way, so I don't want to do too much here. So that's looking probably pretty good. And obviously, I can always do more if I want, but let's just keep it like that for now. So now I've got my sky looking pretty good. So now here's where we want to go in and actually adjust the jet itself. So to do that, I'm going to want to say, create a new mask. And I'm going to want to click on this option right here that says select subject. And we want to wait for Photoshop to think, and this can take a little while, so just be patient. All right, so in this case, it did a pretty good job. But in some cases, Photoshop will, it seems, has sometimes a little bit of a tough time, especially with landing gear and really around the edges. So sometimes that auto select subject will select areas around here and around here. And if that does happen, just like with the sky, we can just subtract those areas out. Really, really easy. All right, so now we've got our subject selected, and just like with the sky, same thing, we can selectively adjust our jet. So we're going to bring maybe that down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. And that's the thing with these masks, is that all of a sudden, when you're making adjustments, all of a sudden your image is just going to pop. You're all of a sudden just going to see it. So let's bring our exposure down just a little bit. Let's bring our contrast up maybe. Highlights, I don't think. No, I'm not going to touch those. Shadows. Maybe just a little bit. Whites. Let's bring those down. Blacks. Let's just a little bit again. All right. So that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, let's say I wanted to add another mask. And note here that we can add as many or as few masks as we want. So let's say I wanted to do something with this foreground. Maybe say we wanted to make that a little bit darker. Or maybe let's say I wanted to bring up this landing gear here a little bit more. If I wanted to do something with the foreground, I would add another linear gradient and do it just like I did with the sky. But let me show you how to do the landing gear. So for the landing gear, and you can also do this on, say, cockpits or engine intakes where you really want to either bring the light up if it's too dark, or bring the light down if it's too bright. So we would want to click on Radial Gradient, and we want to click and drag out, and there's our mask right there, and I'm going to put that right over the landing gear, like that. And just like with the previous masks, I can selectively adjust the exposure, and kind of bring those out a little bit. And that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so then we can go back into edit mode to view our final result. And yeah, that looks great. That's a great looking shot. Now, the absolute last thing that I like to do is I like to add in a little bit of dehaze, which kind of pulls out those colors a little bit as you're seeing. And I oftentimes like to kind of burn the edges a little bit under here, under effects, and kind of darken those just a little bit, kind of like that. And that's looking really, really good. I'm really liking that. And when we're happy with it, then we can hit OK. And there's our final shot.
Pretty cool, right? As you can see, raw editing and layer masking is really the way to take your photos from good to great. Now, this is also a great way to save an otherwise trashed shot. Say, for example, if the light was bad the day that you were shooting, or you were backlit and you just kind of had to deal with it, you can very easily save your photos this way. In the next video, I'll show you how to make those swipe posts that you see on Instagram, and maybe more importantly, how to write a great caption for your photo. So please stay tuned.